City Council work meeting to order on Monday. I didn't catch that. Yeah, Monday, November 14th at 6:01 p.m. Members present are myself, Mayor Morrow, Council members Dillon, Gearbaugh, McClellan, Rhodes, Tahar, and CO is present this evening for both the work meeting and regular meeting. From city staff, we have City Manager Campbell, Clerk Royal, Treasurer Bennett, DPW Director Fordyce, and Police Chief Rennick. The rest of you who are in the audience this evening, if you'd be so kind to sign in the back to my left, we would appreciate that. At this time, I would seek a motion to approve the agenda as submitted. There is going to be a brief introduction before the discussion item, but I don't think we need to amend the agenda to accommodate that introduction. So again, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted. Moved by Dillon, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Rhodes. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of approving the agenda as submitted signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Mr. Campbell, do you want to take the lead on the introduction?
Thank you, Mayor. So I think everybody knows that Justine is retiring in about a month, so there's a process, and so Eleanor Gashman is my new administrative assistant. She goes by Elle. She likes Eleanor. Anyway, so she started today. We're excited. I think she still had an after since I was looking about me, but I think she was supposed to have after the first day. So we're excited to have her, and this is one thing I need to do in district to you all, because there'll be times that you all will be in there. Well, I don't want to put you on the spot. You can have a say, then we prepare to do our session. She's an undergrad from Michigan, her MBA, or Master's of Public Administration from Eastern. Originally hails from, lives in Dixie, but from Howell. And so she just most recently was interning with working for the Mobile. And she's also had stints in Brighton and
Glad to have you. Thank you for being here this evening. Appreciate it very much. Okay, we'll transition then to the one discussion item of the evening, which is the 2017 community event applications. Who would like to take the lead on this? Mr. Campbell, do you want to begin, or should I turn over to the city clerk? Terry, you want to start us off?
This is our third year for doing the community events at the work meeting. So hopefully it seems to be moving in a good pace. There have been a few changes that have been made over the months when we've had a change, but I think it's running pretty smoothly. And this year our estimated event cost is similar to previous years. Last year, the one thing that was more expensive was the Memorial Day Parade, but that's because it had to be moved to the park, Mill Pond Park. I could come up with Curtis. So this next year we expect that to be going back to the cemetery, and everything seems to be pretty close to the same. If you have any questions, we can go over these, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Let's start with questions, and again, please remember to use the microphone. Mr. Tahar, since I'm always starting with Mr. Gearbaugh to my left, can I start with you and we'll end with Mr. Gearbaugh?
Certainly. It seems very clear, and I have no questions.
Okay, great. That was easy enough. Ms. McClellan, any questions?
I don't think so. I do have just one quick thing. I know we've had some citizens that were asking about the Celtic Festival and the costs associated with that. Can you explain just a little bit for the public what those costs are?
Well, what happens with the Celtic Festival, and Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we give them a loan at the beginning of the year, and then once the Celtic is done, they pay us back in full. So it's just so that they can retain the entertainment and get stuff ready before the event.
Years past, like many years past, we have spent no amount of time. The whole crew, the whole community down there to help set up. They have made great strides in it. That's been Tuesday, but certainly, RME, track in the last 3 or 5 years, different ways where they're shouldering the majority of the load to get these set up. And we still provide assistance to them, but not nearly as much as we used to years ago.
Yeah, way, back maybe 10 years ago, we were up in the $16,000 range, and it varies a bit from year to year, depending on the activities they have planned and how much the volunteer group is able to do themselves, but consistently below $8,000 total effort between labor, equipment, and contractors.
That's an excellent question, Ms. McClellan. Let me further elaborate for your benefit and the public's. Several years ago, I'm not exactly sure on the number, but several years ago, the Celtic Festival Executive Committee established a not-for-profit, a 501c3, the Friends of the Saline Celtic Festival, which is a repository for additional money, which helps to cover any losses that they experience in a given year. And the goal is that over the next few years, that they build up such a reserve where they can become independent from the city, which would be similar to Summerfest or Oktoberfest, an independent, autonomous entity separate from the city. And they continue to make great strides to build that account up. It's going to take some time, but also if they experience a loss, that account will cover it before any public resources would be expended. Did you have anything else?
That was it for me.
Perfect.
Thank
All
you.
right, Ms. Dillon.
Well, I appreciate the comprehensive list, it's very nice. I guess I wanted to ask, on DPW's side, do you feel as though what's being provided is adequate, like the porta-johns and that sort of thing, or do you think those need to be increased based on past events?
Well, we offer advice to the organizers in terms of the number of porta-johns, using, there's industry guidelines for, length of event.
Right.
And, what's occurring at the event, so we can provide that sort of information. But other than that, the organizers determine the services that they need from us. So we certainly work with the various event organizers to plan traffic control, portable toilets, any other things that they might need, trash service, recycling. But the planning of it is the event organizer's responsibility.
Right. I guess the other side would be, like, does Wolverine ever give you feedback of, you guys really need some more, porta-johns, or Waste Management saying you guys need more waste receptacles because there's an overflow? Like, are you getting it from that end, like, we're trying to cut corners when we should be doing more, or are we overcompensating?
Yeah, there's certainly been occasions where Waste Management has come back and said, this was way over full, or we've gotten some feedback from the porta-john rental company. Sometimes it's a bit of a learning process. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, Oktoberfest just took a leap in attendance. It had been a relatively small event, and then suddenly, I think 6,000 people showed up. And we made some changes on the fly that year. The organizers were able to arrange for additional toilets to come in. I was able to get some additional trash capacity down there. And then consistently since then, it's been a very big event, and we've planned accordingly. So, yeah, those things happen. But I think overall, the level is correct right now.
Oh, good. Okay. That's all I just wanted to know, whether we're just right kind of on track with what we think is, giving them the right information. And the only other question I had was actually for Riley, which was on Summer Music Series. Have you guys considered doing both sides of the street, or are you only going to do the south side of Ann Arbor Street?
That hasn't been decided yet. That'll be decided at our board, motions being
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dillon. Mr. Seal?
I really have no questions. It appears pretty straightforward. I agree with Ms. Royals' assessment that this seems like a pretty good way to do it. For years and years, I prepared the police portion of that budget, and I'm pretty familiar with it. And like I say, I think it's a good way to do it. I would buttress your remarks and have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Rhodes?
And I have no questions about this list of community events for this year. I would like to reiterate that I am pleased that the city provides some level of support for these various organizations and events, because that's part of what makes Saline the special city that it is.
Mr. Gearbox?
Yeah, just a couple questions. Maybe Riley could answer this or not, or maybe the city manager. The Oktoberfest versus the Summerfest, the fees waived. Why is Oktoberfest like almost $1,000 more in terms of what we provide?
Riley, you want to comment on that?
Riley, why don't we do this, in the event that there are questions for you, why don't you take a seat next to Mr. Fordyce, if you would use the microphone, we would greatly appreciate that.
So, the fees are higher for Oktoberfest? Is that
It
correct?
seems that the fees that the city's waiving, so it must be that we're providing more. I was just curious as to, since they're both comparable, except for the fact that we have the large concerts at Oktoberfest.
And I'm not quite sure because we don't know the numbers for it. So
Yeah.
we just put the, how much, what we think is appropriate for the band at that time.
And I didn't know if you had more expectation that we needed more police service or something as a result of the different events, just from my own curiosity.
Actually, these amounts come from the police department and the DPW. That's what they...
And that's what I thought. And I didn't know if maybe Riley or...
And what they do is, or at least what I've seen them do in the past, is they will look at last year's or the years before and estimate how much more service they feel like they should have gotten, or if there was overtime, or if they needed one more person, or if there could have been a volunteer that could have done something, then they'll offset those costs.
And
I only see $100 difference, is that correct? Or is that-
no, Summerfest is $39.50 and Oktoberfest is $4,800. So I'm assuming it's probably more police activity or something. But I'm looking at what's being waived as fees per our diagram here, so there must be a disconnect between the, yeah. The reason why I'm looking at that is because I'm also looking at the fees for the fair parade and comparing it to the Memorial Day parade. And $2,000 for the fair parade seems a little bit high compared to what actually is the actual parade. So just for my own thing, I'm challenging numbers just because of my thing with numbers, but again, I'm just looking at the amount of activity that's going on that we're waiving. Just to make a point that we're basically providing over $46,000 for city events because of what we waive, even though it's part of our overall operations, those are costs that could have gone towards some other activity. And I just want to continue to reiterate and just say what we're doing is beneficial to the city, but there's also the fact that tonight we're going to be voting on a $70,000 increase in terms of benefits for our staff. So as we look at cost-cutting and cost concerns, this is one of those items that we always have to consider every year.
Dean, I do want to point out that the fact that the fees waived that you were looking at for the $3,900 for Summerfest, that's what was approved on October 19th of 2015. Above the $3,176 is what we're asking for this year.
Okay.
I just wanted to show you that it's less this year, and the same thing for Oktoberfest. Last year, council approved $4,800. This year, we're asking for $3,471, so they do seem to be coming down.
Okay. So actuals are coming in less than what we anticipated.
I wanted you to be able to see what, we are actually spending too.
Okay. One should be budget versus one's actual cost.
But you're providing a very conservative estimate.
Yes.
Or is that sort of a worst case scenario?
Right. And then there is a waived yearly amount, so if you look on the one page, it will tell you how much, these were what were approved by city council on 10/19/2015, but on this waived yearly amounts, these are what we actually spent. I'm sorry, it's really hard to give you everything I think you really want and would need, and put it in a form that's easy to show you what I'm...
No, I think this form's fine. The only thing, it's just the labeling. It needs to be total actual cost versus budget.
Okay, I can add,
And
I will...
my confusion is that I'm looking at it being what the city contributed versus what the organization may have contributed. So,
Okay, I will be glad to add that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to...
yeah, that's fine. Clarification. Thanks. Okay.
Anything further, Mr. Gearbox?
Nope.
I appreciate that, too.
Any additional comments or questions from the group? This is pretty easy then. How about that?
I overestimated the time.
That's all right. Well, again, you're planning for the worst case, well, I should say worst case scenario. You're planning for a lot of questions and comments and dialogue, and then so you can just share time. It is part of it.
Process, you guys are feeling comfortable with the so certainly, push out there, together and next year, but certainly at least now you get those numbers together. So I hope it's a reflection of staff about
Straight through. Very thorough. Would you make sure, Mr. Campo, when you provide Councilwoman-elect Mitchell with a tutorial and orientation, that you also walk her through this process? Because it is a little bit different, and it's something that she should expect next fall and the fall following that. Okay, very good. Give everyone one last opportunity if they have questions or comments. Mr. Rhodes, please.
Yeah, I think at one time in the past, we had put some dollars in for an event that might come up that we didn't know about in advance. Do we have that, or is that going to go into the budgeting process?
It was $1,000
Right.
each year, but we haven't ever used it, so I
Right.
didn't add it. But I mean, you can always say we should come to council and work with it anyway. If there's a new event that comes out, we always bring it to council, because we want to know if you want to waive the fees, or if we're going to charge them. So it's not that we can't do it, it's just that we haven't done it.
Good. So next Monday will be on the voting right for consideration.
Right.
The whole recommendation that we need to add that.
Yeah, I would like to see an amount set aside still for potential future events. Because if it's not in the budget, we might not be as inclined to support it as we would otherwise.
Okay, thank you for that suggestion, Mr. Rhodes. Mr. Har, would you be amenable to that?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. McClellan?
Yep.
Ms. Dillon?
Yes.
Mr. Seal? You're good with that? Mr. Gearbaugh?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Actually, I would just suggest that we cap it at $23,000 compared to the 21, and then we've actually reduced it $1,600 from last year. So if we say 23,000 for events, that'll give Dave his idea of approximately $1,300 for it.
And we still generated some cost savings from years past, which, that's a good suggestion. If I recall correctly, that's a very similar approach to what the city of Ann Arbor does, which they provide a fixed dollar amount and then they cap it. And they say new or old events, everything has to be under this dollar amount, which seems to work very well for them. Okay? Mr. Gearbaugh, did you have something further, or are you good? I'm good. Okay? Everyone's good? Okay, excellent. Well, then this will come back as an action item at our next meeting, which will be a week from today. If there's nothing further, we come then to public comments. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time, make comment or question to City Council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Are there any public comments? No public comments? Well, we do have a brief Veterans Appreciation Reception that will begin at approximately 7 o'clock. But at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn at, let's say, 6:21 p.m. Moved by Gearbaugh. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dillon. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned.